Hi everyone at Point Blank, my name is Kinan Turman and this is my assessment component 2 presentation. There are two parts to this presentation. The first part is how I made my song from the stems that we were given, and part 2 is how I structured and arranged all these parts that I made to create a track. So for my bass, I started with the stem that we were given. The first step I did, since my song is in A minor, was switch the key to A minor. And then I just played around with the notes and the lengths and everything. And I just kept playing around with it until I got something I liked, which I decided to use for my chorus, for my bass. Can see it's not that different from the original. Now, after I was able to do this, I was able to create my first chords, and I'll explain it later when I do the chords. But once I was able to create my two chords in my song, I was able to use the root notes of an octave lower to create the bass lines for the verses. So I'm going to play them right now just so you can hear how the chords match the bass line. This is the first one. And this is the second one. And then just improvising, I decided to create my breakdown, and this is my breakdown. Just improvising with my piano, something that I thought could go in the breakdown. So for my chords, I basically started with the chorus bass line that I had created, and I just used that as a root note to create triads, so you can hear it right here. Of course, that doesn't sound too good, so what I did was, I started with that. I just kept playing around with it, removing notes, and I just kept playing around until I got something that I liked. And eventually I got my first chord, which is very similar to this one. I think it's this one, but in order to augment the bass line, I decided to add the root note and then an octave lower, so you can see it here. This is my first chord. And then I wanted to have another chord that added more feeling, that was more emotional, and I used the hook app to help me with that. And I just played around with it, and I was able to get my second chord, which was this. The next step I took after creating my first chord was to take that chord and arpeggiate it. I used the arpeggiator on it to create something that would be interesting. So as you might recall, this was the original. And then I just applied two arpeggiators to it. And I got something that I really liked by playing around with it. So to create my first melodies, I took my piano arp and I just started deleting notes and finding stuff that I liked. So I started with something like this. And I just kept removing notes. And I just kept removing to create different riffs that I could use on my verses and add variation to it so it wouldn't always be the same. So for my main melody, I started with the original. the first thing I did was switch it to A minor for the key, and then I just basically grabbed all the notes and put them as A, and from that I just kept playing around until I got this, and I felt it sounded a little boring, so I played around with it. I played around with the play at double tempo, play at half tempo, play with the reverse notes and the invert notes, and I was able to get these two melodies for my chorus. And I actually, you can see that this was, after I played around with it, this was the whole MIDI track, and I just picked parts that I liked. So this is the first one that I liked after playing around. And then after playing around a little bit more, I got to this one. I wanted my song to be a mix between a pop song and a chill out house song, so I basically chose a very simple song structure that you can see here, and this is what I applied to for my project. So the first thing I did in Ableton was basically grab what I had set up that I had said I would do, and I put it up here. I created just the labels first, so nothing was here before, and from the structure that I wanted, I created the different sections. So you can see I created the intro, I created the verse, 1, verse 2, the chorus, and the breakdown, and just playing around with my clips. So we'll just play around real quick with them. Intro, verse 1, it starts with a very simple riff. It gets better here, more notes. Verse 2 starts just like verse 1B. And then it gets more interesting here. And there's the chorus. And the breakdown. So once I had all my sections ready, it was very simple. I would just drag and drop them into the arrangement view. And then I just dragged and dropped them, made them the length of each section, and I just played around with everything, deactivated clips, deleted clips, moved things around until I got a structure that I really liked. But I basically used all the pieces from my session view. And then the last thing I actually did was add all my drum parts. For that I actually used my Ableton Push 2, and I just played along with my song, and I started just putting patterns in using a drum rack, and after that I split them into their own tracks, and that's how I created the drum beat, and basically that's how I created my song. You can just play around with it real quick. The intro, the first verse, the chorus, second verse, the breakdown, the second chorus, and the outro. And actually for the breakdown I took the piano arp that I made and I used a synth on it, and in fact when I wanted to make the breakdown I didn't know what to put, so I just put this as a placeholder, and I liked how it played, so I just kept it that way, and that's basically how I made my song.